Oh, connecting to something.
I just started recording.
Okay,
So
great.
yeah, because I'm probably 50% of the way through the YouTube channel,
Hmm.
and I'm doing that in between all the other website stuff.
I saw that.
So yeah, it's getting there. It's getting there. And
Yeah.
so, and one of the things that working with us right now is you get to see a startup in action in the worst possible economic conditions, more or less.
Hmm.
So we're not stopping our startup. We're just
Because then it
recognizing
wouldn't
it.
be a startup; it'd be an end up.
Well, you can't. Yeah, you can't kill the baby here. All right, I got two pass, so why don't we? We've got five people. I want to
Yeah.
honor the fact that people are on time.
Yes. Let's
Uh,
start. Facebook. Sorry, you don't get to watch us today.
all right, so share screen. Here we go.
Would you like me to do a little introduction?
Go right ahead. So we're doing a screen share.
Okay. So, welcome again to today's webinar. It is on re-engineering the current offer. And like we were just talking about, we've weathered the storm by applying the strategies that we discussed in our previous webinars. And if you haven't watched them yet, you can catch them, like Bill was mentioning, on our YouTube channel at IBGR Network. IBGR Network. So in this phase, we know the future is going to be looking brighter, and how do we prepare to take advantage of it as a smart business owner? And the answer is simple. Take everything you've learned in our previous webinars about the pluses and minuses of your current offer and upgrade in anticipation of the expansion beginning, because it's about to start. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Once again, the model that we're using that Bill got when he spent time as a marine scientist, and he learned that the economy actually mirrors ocean waves. So if you get that mental picture of the ocean, it's a beautiful thing to see right now from your home. Think about ocean waves, and that's the basis of this model that we're teaching. And when a business owner knows where the economy is in relation to the wave structure, they can make smart decisions and have a certain predictability in knowing what's coming next. And that's why we're doing this 7-part series on reading the economy. Today is part 4 of the series. And if, again, you haven't watched the other 3, you can still benefit from today's webinar, but you really want to go back and watch the other ones on our YouTube channel, IBGR Network. Because knowing what to do and when to do it is crucial for your business. It's never too late to start reading the economy and making smart business decisions. And the wave model is perfect because nature is very predictable, and so is the economy when we use this method. Before we get into the topic, again, let us once more introduce ourselves because we have somebody new with us. You've been seeing my business partner, William Eastman. He's the only guy showing up today. He has an impressive 40-year track record as a business consultant with well-known big-name companies, and spent time, as I mentioned, as a marine scientist with the Coast Guard. And from this background, he began to notice similarities in how nature and successful businesses operate. And I am Donna Cundy, the other half of the equation. I bring 35 years of academic and applied cognitive and behavioral sciences and a keen knowledge of universal natural laws. And together we are 2020 Sales Solutions. So there you go, Bill. Off to you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Donna. And yeah, 2020 Sales Solutions is our show. We're actually launching a internet-based radio station. So it's going to be more than marketing and sales, which our sales show is. This is going to be a 24/7 internet-based business radio station that if you listen to, download the materials, a lot of the things that we're talking about today are things that you could do. And so we're in the process of doing that, and we're going to have some interesting negotiations today, as a matter of fact. So, but I'll move on. What you see
Before
on
you do, hey, Bill, I just want to welcome Christine Hasbrook. She's an innkeeper, so we have another one to the webinar.
Christine, welcome to the show. I won't be able to, I don't think, hit the chat button and catch
I
you
got
there.
it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Because if I go with full screen on PowerPoint type presentation, everything else is excluded. All right, so I'm looking at this first slide, and really what I should have is a 1 in front of strengthening and a 2 in front of gaining. The pickup on Donna's comment is that, even if we were the leader of a billion-dollar multinational corporation, all of us in business are at the mercy of the economy. we don't have really much impact on what it's going to do. So we're constantly in reactive mode. And so the idea behind this, what it started off as an idea many years ago when I was doing large corporate consulting, is that I was trying to gain access to the C-suite, CEO, COO, CTO, the top people of the Fortune 500 companies. And what I found was that when I started looking at the Securities and Exchange Commission reports, the stuff that, since they're publicly traded, they have to put out there. And then I looked at their companies as a stock investor. This is where this concept hit me, where I was going, well, if the whole market is saying that this is if you have the stock, sell it. If you don't have the stock, don't buy it. Why is that? And so about 35 years ago is where I started on this. As I built the model, I recognized that small business owners need this even more than the CEOs of these businesses, because what I was shocked by, and a lot of them, they have departments that do research. They have on-staff economists, and yet they weren't getting the information that they were getting from me. And my motives were, were really pure. I wanted them to take my call. And so I created kind of a expectation that every time I called them, I had a tidbit of information that they didn't have, and they'd go, wow, that's pretty cool. And so they were always taking my call going, what else does he know? And in the process, I could pitch him something. And so what bringing that all together is that when times are bad, this is like yoga right now. The last 3 sessions and today, 4 of them together, is you're taking yoga classes and you're strengthening the core of your business so you can survive what's going on, so that 2, when the economy turns, and it always turns, that you're going to come out of the blocks faster than anybody else, and you're going to get a multiple in meaning that if your competitors are expanding by 20%, you're expanding by 40%. You're doing more than they're doing. Why? Because you did what needed to be done during the bad times. Given the fact that you may hate the contraction that's going on right now because of the COVID-19, I do, but there's nothing we can do about it in terms of changing that, but we can do something about the business. And what started this whole thing off was, Don, is like my Mark Twain tweet about that history may not repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And the whole issue here is that history is a corkscrew. It doesn't, when it cycles back, you can say, I've been here before, but it's different. I lived through as a business person, the downturn in 90, the downturn in 2000, the downturn in 2007, and now this one. So I've been through 4 of these, and they all look the same, and yet they don't. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to quickly put this up as our starting point, and then I'm going to jump to today's presentation. And last time I did this, Caitlin said, hey, it's a good review, do it again. So Caitlin, I want to ask you, I'm just going to do it. And that is, here's my ocean wave. So I'm showing 2 cycles here. And so you got the crest as the top, you got the trough at the bottom. And in oceanography, what we would do is we would measure what we call the periodicity. What's the period between the waves? We typically measured crest to crest. You can measure trough to trough. Doesn't matter. Is what's the period and how big is the wave? And so if the period is 30 seconds, let's say, between crest to crest, and the wave is 40 feet high, the face of that wave is huge. In other words, the slope, and I can do this because you can see me, the slope of the front of the wave is like this, and the slope of the back of the wave is like that. If the periodicity, if the period is 2 minutes, like you would get in the Pacific Ocean, 40-foot waves, the waves are about that steep. And so it's a totally different condition at sea. Well, it's the same thing here, is that in most economies run 8 to 12-year cycles. And so if I understand that, then what are those cycles called and what do I do about it? All right. So this is my stock market approach. I'm going to put up here the 6 conditions that if you're an investor in the market, if you went to somebody, you have a financial advisor, they probably use this model or some version of it or trained on it. And so at the bottom, you have new opportunities, meaning that if you get out of the blocks before anybody else, you can find stocks that are way undervalued and you got an opportunity to make a ton of money early. Number 2 is that if you don't get in early, the clearest sign that the economy's turned around is you see credit expansion, because when the economy's terrible, nobody's lending because nobody's asking, because nobody's buying. So if customers are not buying, you're not going to borrow money because you're going to have to pay it back and you got no revenue, and lenders are not going to give it to you because they're going, you can't repay it. The euphoria is when everybody thinks the world is great. You could be stupid, make terrible investment decisions. You're still making money because the market's going up, which we've been through since after the election in 2016 up until about 8 weeks ago. We've had almost a steady incline on the economy. And what happens here is that people start making less than good decisions, because if you make a bad decision, you still make money. There's less emphasis on it. Now, in business, what happens is when the revenue's coming in like this and we're getting fat, we start making stupid decisions about our money. We stop looking at what we're doing to run the business. Number 4 is the stress, and that means we're at the top. And if you get at the crest of the wave, and you've ever been in 40-foot seas, when you get at the top and you look at the other side of the wave, you're thinking, oh no. Revulsion is when the people who were really good in the investment side could see it at the top, going, we're at the top, I need to make moves. Revulsion means now, I don't care how slow you are, you're getting the fact that this market is in a contraction. And whether it's a recession or a depression is a function of how long it lasts. And then panic at the bottom is that this is when people are going out of business. This is when there are, even the great companies, everything that they're doing is undervalued. And that's the condition that we're going to talk about today. So our first presentation was what happens at the stress. The next 2 were what happened at this revulsion stage. Today is going to be about what happens at panic. Now, I'll just put these up quick. Cash flow management is the first thing we talked about. I got to move my model here. Low cost producer was the second thing. So the first one was get yourself in healthy financially, to the best of your ability. Then number 2 was let's see if we can attack variable and fixed costs so we can do what we're doing better, faster, for less. So we could have this meeting. And on Monday we had a conversation about how do I go after my current customer base, and I take a 2-part strategy. I'm hyper conservative because I need to hold what business I have, what revenue's coming in. I cannot allow it to go away. And then on the other side, I need to be hyper aggressive about how do I put together or forge some sort of partnership with my customer. And part of the way I do that is here and here, if you can see my mouse, I've taken cost out of the system, which means I can reduce my price. If I can reduce my cost internally, I can reduce my price externally. What happens? My best customers are going to get that. And so instead of waiting for them to cancel orders, what I'm going to do is, in fact, I'm going to give them those discounts, and maybe I can hold them, which gets us to today. And today, going with the panic, is how do I re-engineer the current offer? Now, the 3 sessions left are here, and that's what happens on the upturn. I'm going to let that go. All right, so let me jump down now to today's presentation. And by the way, Donna, if anybody has any questions, I'll let you take those unless they want to jump in verbally.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so here we go. And by the way, this is available to you. I've updated each time. And so the way to look at this is I'm in 40-foot seas. I'm at the bottom. And the good news is there's a nice front of a wave approaching. The bad news is I'm in this deep, dark valley. So I'm in the shadow of the next wave, and it can be pretty dark down there. And what am I doing? I'm re-engineering the company. All right, so the goal. My goal here is a couple. One is to keep the organization focused, whether that's just me, myself, or the people in it, because everybody is feeling kind of the zeitgeist of this bad economy, and everybody is fearful. How do I keep them focused on things that matter? Number 1. Number 2 is how do I upgrade the business on improvements that I didn't make over the year or since the last time I looked at it, but I have some things I want to fix and I postponed. But more importantly is these last 3 iterations of fixing cash flow, going to lowest cost producer, talking to my customers, the wholesales, I picked up a lot of data. Well, it's now time to do that because I need to get my people focused, or myself, on things that are going to be productive, because what am I doing? I'm really now strengthening the core of my business formally so that when the expansion comes, I'm well placed.
So panic is not what the business owner is doing, even though
that's the, well, it could be what typical business owners are in panic. That's why I use the stock market terms, because there are people right now who are panicking, and I understand that, because if you're saying, if I can't open in 2 weeks, I'm out of business because I can't pay my rent, I can't pay my suppliers, I can't pay payroll, I understand why you're in a panic. I would be too, okay? I've been there. But the idea here is that you got to kind of hold it and go, look, I'm going to get through this somehow. What do I do? I'm going to focus on the things that I need to do to improve my business. So when the market takes off, I'm better situated than anybody else. So what I'm going to give you is a top line on how to re-engineer a process or a product or service, and understand, if I was to talk about re-engineering either one of these, this is a week course. We could spend 40 hours on these, because these are very detailed how-tos. But what I give you, you can employ. All right, so re-engineering. So there's 2 types of re-engineering in a company. One is you look at processes where you focus on alignment, or you look at products and services, you focus on the offer. Processes here on alignment, there are only 2 types of things to consider. One is vertical alignment, and that is, how do I align people in the organization with my business objectives? Now, if it's just you, how do you do that with yourself? Because a lot of times there is no strategic plan, there is no business plan, and I'm not talking about the hoops you jump to go to the bank. I'm saying that you need some sort of operational plan that says, this is what we're going to do this year to hold yourself accountable. If you've got one, then you need to share it with the employees. And if you got employees and you don't have one, it really makes it tough for them to do the type of work that you need them to do in order to grow the company. So vertical alignment is, as we would call it in consulting speak, does the frontline employee have line of sight to the business? That's really it. Next one is horizontal alignment. This one I think people understand more, and that is, how do I align my processes with customer objectives? So the focus on alignment, if I'm talking vertical alignment, it's a top-down and then bottom-up. Management, your job as the owner of the company is to decide this, roll it down, and then bring the data back up. Here, it's outside in. If you design a process without the end user in mind, you're crazy, because what will happen is you produce something they don't want, or your costs are going to be so high that you can't make any money on it. So those are the 2 types of alignments if I'm working on process. Products and services, what am I doing? I'm looking at how do I do something, and I'm going to introduce the concept of alpha, beta, and release. 1, 2, 3. If you're familiar with software, we do it all the time in software. If you're a Linux person, you're using open source software like Fedora. Right now, Fedora is at 17.1.42 or something. Now, all that says is that it's the 17th release. They're in version 1, and here are the improvements. But the idea is alpha, which I'll talk about, is you do it internally. Beta is you do it with customer, like, for example, the last conversation you had. And release is you generalize and sell it to everybody else. And I have a good friend who took a $50 million business and turned it into a $400 million business by using this approach. That's actually, I got it from Mike Hendren. All right, here we go. So focus on alignment, vertical alignment, yearly strategy, business plan, individual dashboards, and scorecard. Pretty simple. So you say, here's what we're going to do every year. You then develop a plan to do that, and that could be a one-pager. Again, I'm not talking about writing something that you're going to go to a lender or a financial institution, because they're going to ask you to do stuff that they need that you don't need. You don't need to know that stuff. You don't need to spend time on it. What I do is I have a yearly strategy. I break it into quarters. Quarter 1, quarter 2. Like right now, this is April 21st, 22nd, 22nd. We are in the first month of the second quarter. Then I break it down by months. So at the end of the month, I have a list of things I should have done, and that keeps me honest. All right. So what is an individual dashboard? Here's the deal: you got an employee working for you or yourself. But let's take an employee, and they're driving a car. What instruments do you want in front of them as they're driving? All right. Because what happens in a lot of companies, people have a job and they're doing the job and they have no friggin' idea whether what they're doing, how that contributes to business objectives. If people are working for you and they don't know what business objectives they're meeting by doing that, then you're wasting energy, because they can do their job perfectly well. If they don't advance your business objectives, then they're not really returning value to you, and you own that and they don't. And I've had the greatest impact I've had in businesses in this area is designing dashboards for employees, and then when you roll it up, I got 4 employees, that rolls up to a scorecard. That tells me whether we're on track. And so, and I've got a bunch of stuff, if you're interested in this, I can send you.
How would a solopreneur do the dashboard and scorecard?
Well, you wouldn't, as an individual, as a solopreneur, individual business owner right now, you wouldn't have a scorecard. You just have a dashboard for you, for what you're doing. So maybe the way to looking at that is, let's say you're doing 3 major things. All right. So there maybe is a dashboard for 1, 2, and 3. Then as you hire somebody, you're going to turn over one of those jobs. You just give them that dashboard. They get to drive that. And then you figure out that if that's the case, and you've got, let's say, 3 people working, how do I roll that up?
So it's kind of the daily plan, if you will?
Well, it could be a daily plan. What it is, it's feedback to tell somebody you're not doing or you are doing what it is you're supposed to be doing.
I'm learning too, guys.
So here's what's going on right now. So let's take a personal. By the way, Donna, what time is it? Because I can't see it on here.
It is 10:23.
Okay.
Gotta go.
All right. So we're doing all right. All right. So right now on building a radio station, let's use that as an example. I am in charge of operations. I'm in charge of marketing and sales, and I'm in charge of programming. And for the people that don't know anything about radio, those are the 3 primary processes in radio. Making sure you're on the air 24-hour by 7 with a quality signal. Programming is your quality signal has quality content up there, things that people want to hear, and then you'll have marketing and sales in terms of how do you get listeners. And what I'm doing right now is I'm building dashboards for each one of those roles, because in 2 months I'm not doing those 3 jobs. I'm going to turn those over. And so with this, I simply have a dashboard that says I've got a list of these things that I have to get done this week in each one of those areas. And my dashboard is a completion number. So what I do every day is I look at what I got done as opposed to what was due, and I give myself a grade on that. And then at the end of the week, on Saturday, I score that grade and go, okay, did we get everything done this week we needed to do? And if we didn't, then it's got to carry over. And if it carries over and it's my fault, I lower my grade. So I'm grading myself, and I'm just using A to F, again, just to keep it really simple. But I can tell you that it has me working a couple extra hours at night, and it has me getting up a couple extra hours early in the morning, because I'm looking at the list from last week going, you missed it. So that's what it would look like. Now, ultimately, there's things that we'd be measuring, like things like dock to dock. In other words, when a job comes in the door and the job leaves and the customer's paid for it, how long does that take? And then what steps along the way, because it may be that 4 employees work on it. So then I look at each employee station. So those are the type of things you go into as you grow the company. But right now, this is you having an activity list that says this is what's got to get done this week. And I isolate it to the different functions I have, because what I'm already thinking about is I'm not doing those 3 jobs in the future. Does that help, Donna?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Horizontal alignment. Understand customer objectives and requirements. Last session we talked about, guess what was happening in those conversations as you give them customer discount, trying to figure out how we can work together in this bad economic environment. What am I getting? What the customer really wants from the stuff that we sell them, products, services, and how are they using that information? Well, what I can do then is say, here is the stuff that I've got to meet if I'm going to sell to them. Number 2 is this is a quality tool, what's called a quality function table. This is dirt ass simple. I won't swear on here for the first time. Dirt ass simple.
No bleeping.
It's an XY axis. Here's what you do. On whether you do it vertical or horizontal, to keep it with where we're going, you do it horizontal. You take all the customer requirements, and on this table across the top, you put them in there. They may have 5 or 6 requirements. And then on the other side, you put in the process that you use, how you do work, and then you start filling in the boxes. And what are you doing? You're coming up with a process for how to meet that, to make sure that you meet all their demands. It's pretty involved on the one hand, and on the other hand, if you haven't done it, it couldn't be simpler to do. It's so logical that the second you do it, you're going, why didn't I think of it? It's no great revelation. You don't have to be a brain surgeon. So In the literature, it's known as a QFD, quality function deployment, but I'm trying to de-jargonize everything I do. So this is simply a table that you create in spreadsheet or in a word processor. It says we've got one axis of what the customer wants. We have one axis of how we do business. And then what do I do in each one of those boxes to make sure that I do it in a way that I can make money and they're happy with me. Map the as is. For those people that were 2 sessions back and we talked about lowest cost producer, you did this. This is the issue with the index cards. And the as is what are we currently doing? Let's get a picture of that, because what am I looking to do? Take out any step or activity that does not return value. And value is the customer wouldn't pay for it, and I'm not required by law or engineering or something to do it. It's just there. Get rid of it. Because you take out a step, you increase quality because there's less chance of defect, and you take out a step and you reduce material and labor costs. All right. Oh. Then create the 2B. We talked about that in the other. I didn't use this terminology, but you say, okay, I'm going to take all that stuff out, and I'm going to create, this is how we're going to do it in the future, which is streamlined. The customer's going to get a better product. They're going to get it faster. We're going to have fewer defects internally, and take less time, which means I'm going to have a better margin on this product or service. And then the idea of alpha is, one, when you build it, you test it inside. We do this all the time. The first thing I do with anything before I give it to you is we test it and I use it. So I apply it to something. Like I create a job aid for how to do a dashboard. Well, I test it and I use it for a couple weeks until I'm satisfied I got all the bugs out. Then I go on the test, I find a customer that we had this conversation with in the last session and say, hey, I got this great idea and I'd like to work with you on this, and here's the deal. I'll tailor it to your needs, and all I want is cost. No profit, just pay me cost. Why? Because once I take the bugs out, what am I going to do? I'm going to generalize it, and then I'm going to release it, and guess what I have? I have a product that I can sell or process. And I said a good friend of mine, Mike Hendren, ran a company called Ascent Communications. It was about a $50 million company. He went and took a deal with Walmart. Walmart needed a special type of logistics system built for them software-wise. Mike did it for less than cost, so Walmart, being Walmart, agreed to it. So he lost his butt on that, but guess what he did? He turned around, had a software package that he sold to everybody else, and that it drove the valuation up of his company to $450 million, and Mike sold it. And great example of how that works. Okay, product service development. The concept here is first to market. All right, understand customer objectives and requirements, same thing. Create the function table, the same thing. Okay, here's the question you have if it's a new product or service. Can I fit it into the current process or create a new one? I would say if you're small, fit it into what you're currently doing and don't design a new process, because you might not be able to afford it, but you got to ask that question. And then it's the same thing here. You test it internally. So if you make a new service or new product, make the staff test it and use it, play with it for a bit. Then you go to the customer that you worked this deal with and test it out. Their expectation is that you've kind of designed it around them, and it's going to have some bugs, but you're going to take care of it. And once it works, they're going to get it at a good price because they're not paying a full boat right now. And then what you'll have is you have a product you can take every place else and then really make the money on it. And if you think about it, this is the best way of doing product or service testing, because most of the companies that I've worked with that have been unsuccessful, they don't test with the customer until they build it. And then they talk to marketing about selling it. Marketing looks at it and goes, I can't sell this thing, because nobody really had the voice of the customer involved in the process. Okay. So I went through those quick. What do we have? We should have about 29 past the hour. Is that correct?
10:31.
Oh, 31. Okay, I was off a little bit. Now, I realize that that's a lot of stuff for Becky and Caitlin to hear, because I don't see anybody else on right now.
Christine and Dawn are here. Dawn Bapstola. Christine
okay,
has
excellent. So, but here's what we do. So if I was, and I'm not looking for a job because I'm no longer doing any consulting other than this, but if I was consulting to your business and we were at this stage, this is what we would be doing. And I just don't have in 30 minutes the ability to drill down, because on some of these, like how to map the as is, how to create a to be. We could spend 4 or 5 days on those topics. But right now, since you're a small business, it doesn't take 4 or 5 days. You get out the index cards in this case, you put up what you're doing, you fix what's wrong, and you go, that's it. I formalize the process, and you're done. And I guarantee that you're going to do it better, faster, for less. And now you have the issue of you can use price as a competitive tool. In the environment we're in, the way to use price as a competitive tool is to cut your price. But if you increased your margin, cut your price by the amount you increased your margin, and what you can do is offer it for less than anybody else and still be making the same amount of money on it.
So we have a contractor, we have an innkeeper, we have a franchise owner, and we have someone that has background in small business. What are your questions?
Yeah, and we can either do them here or we can do them offline. We can set up a time to talk because I'm interested in you keeping your business going, or if you're starting one, I'm interested in you getting started because this is going to be over. I don't know what the date is. It's going to be over, and it's going to be time to go back to work and make some money.
Hey, this is Katie.
Hey,
So
Kate.
I loved when you guys were talking about the quality function table.
Yeah.
Do you want to just even use like annotate on your slide and just go over a quick um, like what it would look like for a small business owner? Just a quick example, maybe.
Yep. Yep. As a matter of fact, if everybody hits up us, what I'll do is I'll actually create something. I'll send you one that I've got. So let's see here. X-axis equals. So if you like, I can send you a couple that I've done on products that I have built.
Sure, that'd be fantastic. See, I've just never thought of putting it as a table before, so I like that idea a lot to graph, like truly the process that you have, does it meet your customer requirements? Like, I don't know how to get any more, dummy proof, so to speak.
Well,
That's
it's
fantastic.
the issue here, I learned as a consultant is the more you can keep stuff simple, then the easier it is to deploy. Because a lot of people in my industry, in my former industry, make a living on black boxing everything. So it's kind of like they have this magic formula, and if you hire them, they're kind of woo, and they do a little voodoo, and it all
Mhm.
happens. And so,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why just something you can use and go on ahead and, yeah, put it to use. Love it.
Just to clarify, the as is you said is like the note cards that we put up, and the to be is when you take away a note card that is something that is not adding any value.
that's right. And the as is okay when you get done and you've taken all those cards down, what's left on the wall?
Okay.
And then what you're codifying, you're saying to yourself, that's how we do it from this point on.
What if you find yourself adding? I'm adding note cards.
Okay, well, that could happen. And what that's saying is that perhaps you had some deficits in what you were doing that you didn't recognize because you didn't look at it that way. So you're going to gain. You may not save, it may not be a cost savings to you. But then again, if you do a lot of that, the place I would look is, are you doing any returns? Have you had to do any refunds? If you're a big corporation, let me put it this way. If you were a big corporation and that's what came out of this, I would immediately go look at the data for returns, rebates, and anything on the customer side, because my guess would be is people have been less than happy with what you've delivered, and I would look there because that's maybe where the money is.
Okay.
Not saying that that's what's happening with you, but I would say in general sense in a corporation, I would find my improvements I would do away with all the refunds and all the stuff that we got to do in recovery. All right, so I'm going to save that, and then I'll tell you what we'll do is when I send this package over to Donna, when we're done, I will send you an example of now if it says QFD, don't get don't get caught up. It's not a QFT. I changed the terminology a little bit because it was like, it sounded too much jargon to me. And maybe I'm just getting sensitive
Because
to it now.
QFT sounds less jargon.
Yeah, well, hey, now that I'm not in the business anymore, some of the stuff we used to do, I'm like, that kind of sucks. All right, I'll take care of that for you. Thank you, Kate. Caitlin.
And Christine was saying back here that she'd like to add value rather than cut price. And I was saying that that's a great approach as long as we know what the customer considers valuable.
Yeah, that's one. And two is that my issue on cutting the price to them is simply understanding where the customers are at. If they're worried about their revenue and staying in business. I'm assuming we're doing a B2B now. We're selling to other businesses.
No. This is a B2C. This is an innkeeper.
Oh, to a consumer. Okay. Well, if the consumer is worried about, will I have a paycheck in 2 weeks? Their concern is probably less about adding services and more about, can I afford this? You see, what I don't want to do is I don't want to put them in a spot where they're going, I either got to pay for food or I'm going to pay you or you're going to pay me. And I might not be able to avoid that, but that's kind of my mindset about it right now is what's the fear? And the fear is I don't have enough money, regardless of who I'm selling to. So how do I address the pain point? And if you know your customers and you think adding value will grab them, cool. But that's
and even a price cut doesn't have to be a price cut that is continuous.
Well, no, because you're giving them special pricing. That's part of the relationship. And also is that understand you've gone after your processes. So what's happened here is if you take the cost of doing it out, the lowest cost producer concept, then you automatically have produced a bigger margin. The case I'm making is I've increased my margin because I've cut my internal cost. I'm going to give the customer that rebate. So I'm going to wind up at the end of the day having the same margin as I had, but I'm using that price reduction strategically to hold the account. But again, you got to know the people you're selling to. If that's not going to work with them, then maybe adding value to it, because if you add value, you have to pay for the value. Somehow that value added has to be accounted for. Well, then take it out of the increased margin and say, okay, well, can I add this to it? And what I'll do is the added money I got from this goes over here. Because nothing we do in business when we add is free. It costs us something to do that, even if it's my own time.
So the comment was, we're not serving the regular guests now, just those doing essential services. And if they're in the prices at the government rates and not charging for breakfast. So I think the idea of this webinar, Christine, right now, as I understand it, is that that's who you're serving now. And what you want to do is put your future glasses on, because the economy is going to be opening up. And how will you be marketing your in those times, right, Bill?
Yeah, and it would be, now the government personnel that you're serving, in good times, are they part of your customer base? And if the answer is yes, then you're putting some focus on them is good, because I understand you've got to hold your revenue right now. It doesn't matter whether this is a temporary customer or a long-term customer. You have got to be hyper conservative on this part of the business to go, any revenue I have to hold. The question is, can I increase the margin on that revenue by getting my act together internally? And then if I do that, is there anything I can do with that increased margin to make sure that I hold the business? And in Christine's case, what she's thinking about is I can add some service on there to keep them coming in. So the question is that Donna asked is a good one, is that, is this core to your business? If the economy was good, how important is this customer base to you? And that would be, I can't answer this in the abstract, though. If you want to talk about this offline, you can hit me up. I'm pretty much available Friday. I've got a pretty full day today and a full day tomorrow. Donna and I are on the air tomorrow. But Friday, if you want to talk about this, we'll just go back and forth with some ideas and see what we come up with.
What a great offer. Thanks, Bill. Christine's a good friend of mine. And she
Okay,
says,
good.
Cool.
Well, I'm glad she's on. It's nice hearing that she's on.
Yes. Great questions. Are there any other questions before we wrap up today and go out there and make it a great day? It looks like the sun's shining and there's hope on the future. We're in panic, but we're not going to come out of panic. And
We're not in panic. Nobody on this call is in panic. All of us on this call are going, there is an opportunity for me to grow
Yes,
my business, and that is what I'm doing right now. Get ready.
exactly. Exactly.
I'm
No
warming
panic.
up. I'm warming up for the next race.
Don says, no panic. Easy peasy, says Christine.
No panic. Come on. You know, how many of these we've been through before? How many of these we're going to go through again?
This too shall pass.
Yep.
So
We're entrepreneurs. We know how to deal with this stuff.
exactly. So then on Monday, we'll be back again at 10 a.m. to talk about, what's the next one again, Bill?
We're going to talk about, I won't put this on slide. Everybody can see it. We're going here now. What we're saying is that at the bottom, let's talk about the best case scenario. In 2 months, the economy is beginning to pick up. Not everybody believes it, okay? But enough people believe it that spending starts happening. This new opportunity, as I'm circling here. What do I want to get ready to do so that I can take advantage of this while everybody else is sitting on the sidelines, either going, I don't believe it, or they don't even see it. So what we're going to be talking about is this one here. And that is, I'm going to anticipate the demand coming in. Rather than waiting for demand, people saying, I want to buy this, I'm going to anticipate it, and I'm going to go after my current clients with my current offer, plus whatever I've done here in improving my core. Plus, I want to go after all of my competitors' clients that I want. My competitors have clients I want. They have clients I don't want. I want to go after the ones that the highly profitable ones that are buying from my competitors. I want to go get them, and this is the best time to go get them because I'm not going to assume that my competitors coming out of this better than I am.
And I'm typing in here, inviting everyone tomorrow to our behind the scenes Facebook Live on our Facebook page at 2020 Sales Solutions at 1:45.
What are we talking about? What are we talking about tomorrow on the radio?
At 1:45 tomorrow, I've got special guests Kay and Shai. They're restaurant franchise owners, and they've been using their email list and what they've coined crisis communication to keep their restaurants afloat, keep their employees gainfully employed, and they're doing some really creative things out there to generate revenue, and then also they're giving back to the frontline workers. So
okay,
that's with
excellent. All right,
Kay and Shai. Special guest, and so hopefully you can come and check that out too, because they're all about marketing and lists, especially the emails. And most of us have some sort of email list, so I think it could apply to everyone.
The other thing, Don, is let me when I put this, I'll put this up here shortly, and then you can send out a link to everybody on YouTube so you can look at all these in the series.
I put our YouTube channel, IBGR Network. I think if they just go to YouTube, so we should be good. Well, great. Christine says, in an Alfred Newman voice, says, "What, me worry?" So there you have it. It's been great spending time with you all this morning. We really appreciate you coming on and listening to what Bill has to say about this. It does work, and when we can understand how to apply, when we can rewind that, when we can recognize where we are in any situation and know what to do, it really takes a lot of that panic out, because just knowing that there is a way, and there's a way that's proven, can really take that worry down and make us a lot more focused on where we go. And like Don says, GPS, absolutely. So thank you again, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow on Facebook, behind the scenes, 1:45 p.m. And if not, back on Monday at 10 a.m.
Okay, yeah, and don't be strangers. If there's something we can do for you, reach out.
Yes, I'll put my email address one more time.
All right. Okay, thank you. Everybody have a great business day.
And,
oh, Dawn was on.
and let's see, Dawn is still on. Now it's just us.
All right, okay.
But we're recording.
All right,
And
turn it off.